Hello, everyone. Welcome to our birding spectacular. I think a touch past midwinter birding spectacular. Our intrepid field staff is out in the field. I guess you can see what I'm looking at as well, which is Yuval in the center of the country, the Ariel Sharon Park, and the JBO is the Jerusalem Bird Observatory, the Neely and David Jerusalem Bird Observatory online, the Eilat Bird Sanctuary online. Dr. Yoav Perlman, head of the birding unit, our new head of the birding unit is online. My name is Jay Shofet, coming to you from our offices here in midday, an unusual hour for our birding, for a webinar in general. It's a Sunday webinar, but it's early in the day because we needed the light. And it's been a little rainy here in Israel. It looks a little sunny now. Just literally the sun came out this second in Tel Aviv. But please let us know where you're from in the chat. Hundreds of people already here, over 100. Wow, over 140 already. And people are coming in all the time. I will just use this first couple minutes to welcome everybody. We're going to have hopefully the birds will be cooperative, and our photographers and videographers and experts are standing by to take every advantage of the birding, what's the word I'm looking for? Gala performance that has been going on in our skies and in our wetlands over as the migration season gets going here. A lot of birds to see, and we hope you'll be able to see them. I want to thank everybody for joining, especially our supporters out there everywhere, and our board members and staff in the United States and Canada and in the UK and in France. Thank you all very much for support year-round, for your support of our birding conservation activities. One of the most important things we do here at the Society for the Protection of Nature in Israel. We have an incredible and dedicated and talented birding staff, and we try to bring to you as much as possible the amazing, amazing avian wildlife, as well as other wildlife that we can get in all parts and in all habitats of Israel. Thank you guys really for all of your chats from every place, from all around the globe, in Israel and Canada and England and Florida and New York and the Netherlands and Ra'anana and Newton, Massachusetts, and Florida and Baltimore and Teaneck, Hereford, UK, Binghamton, Massachusetts, Maryland, Jerusalem, Hyde Park in Chicago, probably Hyde Park in London, and all over. A lot of Brits on today, actually. Very interesting to see. Good to see, guys. Welcome, Mehmet and John, Linda, our trustees. If you guys are on, thank you very much. 4 minutes past the hour. We're up to over about 160 people on the webinar, and I don't know how many are on Facebook at the moment, but we're glad to be here. I think I'm going to turn it over to, let's respect the time of the people who are here, and really from all over. And they're still coming in and still greeting, from Farmington Hills to Evanston to Toronto, California. Welcome everybody for a great hour of webinars. I don't know if Ellen, you're going to be doing questions and answers afterwards, during, but please, where you can write your questions in the question and answer feature, and we'll try to get to them. I think
we will address questions as we go along, and at the end if we need to.
Okay.
So send them along, and we will do what we can.
Great. So Alan Casal and the JBO, director of our Jerusalem Bird Observatory, will be handling the questions in the back office today. I'm going to be getting on another Zoom, unfortunately, when I say goodbye. And I will do that right now, basically. I introduce Dr. Yoav Perlman. Yoav is the new director of BirdLife Israel of SPNI's birding unit, directs an incredible staff. And he does that under Dan Alone, the deputy CEO, who had that job for quite a while here, and has prepared an incredible Tsevet, and I'm sure an exciting webinar. We keep looking at that bird in Eilat, and we're wondering about it. So Yoav, take things away. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jay, for the introduction. Great to see everyone from all over the world here with us. Just this bird dancing on Noam's screen is a jack snipe. We'll get to that jack snipe in a minute. Yeah, so it's fantastic to have everyone here. It's a lovely winter day here in Israel, at least in parts of the country. It was very rainy and cold, and today the sun is at least partially out. So it is a winter experience here, but we already have some first signs of spring. Spring here comes early. Without further ado, I'll pass you on to the excellent staff out there. So we'll start in a minute at the Jerusalem Bird Observatory. Rea Shai, she's the rigger operating the JBO today. Yuval Dax is in Tel Aviv in Park Ariel Sharon, just outside of Tel Aviv. Noam Weiss is at our bird observatory in Eilat, the Eilat Bird Park, and we hopefully Nadav Israeli will join us. He's having some technical difficulties, but he should join us shortly in the Hula Valley. So yeah, and Alan will be shifting us from place to place. So enjoy this webinar. Let's hope that the birds play ball. Oh, the jack snipe is out of view, but yeah, let's get going. Over to you, Alan. Thank you. I just forgot to mention, as always, thank you so much to Tzvika Yador for supporting this webinar series. It's really important. His ongoing support is crucial for this webinar series. So thank you so much to Tzvika. Over to you, Alan.
Great, thank you, Yoav. And again, welcome to everybody. It's great to see people joining in from all over the world. And we hope we have a great hour of birds for you. We're planning to go for about an hour, but if things are really coming at us fast and furious, we might keep going. It's up to you guys how long you're willing to sit around and join us. I am going to try my best to put the names in English and Hebrew on the chat as they come up. I'm one-handed today, so it'll take me a couple seconds to get things up, but I'll do what I can. And let me know if there's any questions. We'll try to get to you as they go along. Enjoy the day. So I'm going to pass you on to our chief ringer for today. Rea Shaish is standing by in the Ariel ringing station here at the Lily and David Jerusalem Bird Observatory, and he's got a couple birds to show us. So without further ado, on this rainy, cold Jerusalem day, here's Rea.
Hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining us. I don't know what about you, Yoav, but the sun in Jerusalem is out. Is not out. It's completely covered. As you can see, I'm pretty cold right now. Pretty jealous of Yuval and Noam. Noam, are you even wearing a t-shirt? Am I right? Yeah, Jerusalem is pretty cold right now, and we had a really cold winter so far. It even snowed a bit, and it's really exciting to be out here ringing, doing an afternoon session right now. What I'll do is show you some birds that we already caught and ringed just before we started this webinar, and it's been more than a month since the last time we ringed birds. I'll talk a bit more about that later, but let's just start with the birds. For whom of you who are not familiar with bird ringing or banding, I'll just briefly go through it. We are trapping wild birds out in the JBO. We do it in a standard procedure in order to collect information about the birds assemblage we have here. Right now, the numbers and variety is pretty low, as it's pretty much the middle of winter, right before spring migration kicks off. But the optimists among us can already notice the first signs of spring. 2 days ago, when I came here, I saw my first common swift of the season, which was really exciting. Couldn't catch it though. Let's see what I have here in the bag. So, as I mentioned, the bird banding is a way of collecting information about our birds. what we cannot figure out just by watching birds and counting them. So in order to collect good information, we have to trap the birds, like this little Sardinian Warbler female I'm holding here. When we trap the birds, first of all, we can ring them or bend them using metal rings. This one already has a little metal bend on its tarsus. Can you see it clearly in the camera? I guess it's out of focus. It's a tiny, very simple instrument, nothing too high-tech, just a tiny metal piece imprinted with a serial number, which is unique, and a location identifier. For example, this one goes by X495286, IBRC Israel, Israeli Bird Ringing Center. That's a unique combination. No other band or ring in the world carries the same information. And the first thing it allows us is to differentiate this individual from all of the rest of them. When we trap birds consistently in the same method and same place, we can create an inventory or a checklist of what we have here. And that allows us a good basis for protecting what's out here. Another thing we can do while handling the birds and seeing them so closely, we can check some details that we might miss when just watching them in the field. We can determine the age of the bird. For example, this bird is, well, I cannot say for sure how old it is, but it's definitely not a newborn. It's at least it was at least born last year. Some other features we can look at is the colors. You can see this bird is rather plain with no distinct features. That's a female. The male of the Sardinian Warbler has a very, very impressive black head and a gray silvery upper parts. I'll show you another feature, very distinctive, very, very interesting. The tail pattern of these warblers. Many of our Silvia warblers have such a fancy, well-patterned tail. Some of them don't. For instance, the black cap has a different tail pattern. But
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. This is Nadal from the Hula Valley. And I just want to share with you a wonderful sight of a greater spotted eagle I just found in the Hula Valley. And this individual is now feeding. As you can see, this is a greater spotted eagle, one of the larger eagles, larger birds of prey that spends the winter in Israel, in the Hula Valley. And this one is just found now in the Hula Valley at the foothills of Mount Hermon and the Golan Heights, and is now feeding. I didn't see what it caught, but greater spotted eagles, they prey on smaller birds like ducks. Could be a duck or some kind of a wader or a pigeon or a dove. And now it's feeding. You see it's holding the prey in its massive legs and tearing parts of flesh with its quite massive beak. Greater spotted eagles come to us from Eastern Europe and Western Asia, Western Russia, and they come to Israel. They arrive to Israel in, this is a massive bird. They arrive to Israel in late autumn. Some of them are passing Israel in migration, and some of them, a couple of hundred birds, are spending the winter in Israel. And the Hula Valley is one of the best places to see greater spotted eagles. This one is an adult bird, that's why it's not spotted. The young birds have white spots on the wings. Looking, maybe it's hearing my my voice. Wow, look at his face. It's a globally endangered bird. About 1,000 pairs breeding all around the globe, and mainly due to habitat loss. They don't breed in Israel. They only come here for the winter, and quite soon, because the Israeli winter is getting to an end, and spring is coming, and these birds, along with many other species, will start migrate back north to their breeding territories.
Nadav, while you're showing the eagle, there were a couple of relevant questions. So just about the dimensions of this eagle. This is one of the larger eagles we have in Israel in winter. Its wingspan is, well, it's about 3 feet, almost 2 meters across. It's a large eagle. Look at those massive legs, as Nadav said. The body length would be about 2 feet, 70 centimeters. Nadav is based in the Hula Valley at the moment. So the Hula Valley was the epicenter of the bird flu outbreak in the second half of December. Since then, the situation is much, much, much better. There still are very few cases, not in the Hula Valley, but elsewhere in Israel. But the big crisis is behind us, thankfully, and we hope that there won't be another. Yeah. Fingers crossed that there won't be another outbreak. It's turned around for us. Amazing.
Yeah, I'll try and show you some crane. Oh, we had a glimpse of the prey. I'll try and show you some cranes later, so you can see with your own eyes that the cranes, well, most of them, the ones that are still alive, are happy. And well, look at the crop. He has a full crop. These large eagles, they eat very fast. They eat a lot, and then not all of the food goes directly into the stomach. Some of it is accumulated in the crop, and later on it will digest it. So that's a sign that this bird has a good meal. You can see his full crop. Yeah, back to anybody else, or where I could stay with this eagle for hours. You're welcome to stay. Spaghetti-like. So, Yoav, Rhea, anyone? Back to you.
Yes, I can take it. Do you hear me from Eilat?
Yeah.
Yes, so welcome to sunny Eilat. It's about 20 degrees Celsius. And what you see on your screen right now is one of 2 jack snipes that have decided to spend their winter at the Eilat Bird Sanctuary. It shows our new built habitat, the new lake, we call it. We still don't have a name. And we are waiting maybe for someone to name it. And this jack snipe is just an amazing bird. It's tiny. It's much smaller than a dove, maybe size of a thrush. And now it's a bit sleepy, but when foraging, I think most of you have seen it in the beginning, it is dancing. It is pushing the ground, which is its very long fingers, making some movement under it in the algae, and then putting its very long bill or medium sized bill into the mud, not seeing its food, but feeling it. The special bill of the snipe has a sense, they can sense what's inside the mud, and they just feel anything moving, they just grab and eat. So the dance is beautiful, but it is mainly meant for better foraging, moving the creatures that are below the algae in the mud, and then being able to grab it with its long bill. This jack snipe caught a lot of attraction here, a lot of attention. Many birders from the area arrived to see it. Some of them did, some of them didn't, because it's a real skulker. We are pretty lucky to see it right now, even if it is so camouflaged, and I'm sure some of you have a slight difficulty to identify it on the screen. So just a really, really amazing bird here, and it's not alone. Our lake is just full of birds here. Almost everywhere there are some shorebirds. I'll try to show more, or maybe just a second. I need a second here. Here, this is our ring plover, one of about 20 that are spending winter here. They are mostly migratory and go all the way to South Africa. Here is a dunlin in front of it, but some of them are just choose to stay around here in Eilat, in our lake. And as you can see, all these birds are busy foraging, preparing themselves for moving north. It's true, we are still in winter, but spring is felt everywhere. Species of birds that arrive here already on migration are common swifts, pallid swifts. We've seen a house martin today, a red-rumped swallow, and other birds that are already on the move. And these wintering species, like this cute dunlin, look at the movement. It's eating insects in the water. And this dunlin has spent here winter, but you can see they're already starting to prepare for the move. They change their locations. They eat more intensively, starting to get some fat for the very, very long journey to the Arctic Circle, which is in front of them. So from the Eilat Bird Sanctuary, it's real sunny here and beautiful and lots of birds in the lake. And we are really waiting for you to come and join us to this birding festival coming, and also to the joy of birding, which is happening just every day here.
Yeah, just to mention, there's a question whether Eilat is on the Dead Sea. No, Eilat is at the tip of the Red Sea, the Gulf of Aqaba. Maybe we can pass over to Yuval, and until Yuval gets set up. Yuval, do you want to switch your sound on? Yuval has some birds I can see. I'll just say that at last, yeah. Hi Yuval, just 1 second. At last we're getting some international visitors to Eilat, and we're having the Eilat Spring Festival soon and Champions of Flyway in Eilat. We'll talk about that later on. So Yuval, over to you.
Hi everyone from Ariel Sharon Park. It's hard to believe, but I'm in the middle of the most populated place in Israel, the Dan metropolitan area in Tel Aviv. I'm in our central park, just watching a small flock of Eurasian teals. These beautiful ducks, you can see all the beautiful colors, the male in the middle, surrounded by two females. The male has this beautiful teal color on its ear feathers. That's where the name derives from. And this is only a part of a huge flock of wintering birds, wildfowl that are concentrating here in the park every year in the winter. Winter time in Israel, specifically in Ariel Sharon Park, is one of the best times to do birding in Israel. We get all the migrants, extreme migrants that come from the whole of Europe and Asia. Some migrants do a migration route of more than 2,000 kilometers just to arrive here. They find the same wintering grounds every year in Israel, and that's where they spend the winter. I just want to show you a little bit more of the park. I'm taking the phone out, and I'm just showing you a little bit of where we are. I'm Yuval from Ariel Sharon Park, and it's hard to believe, but this place is called Ayalon Stream, and behind me is like a small hill. This hill was once a rubbish dump, and we did a kind of we turned it green again, The rubbish is not anymore concentrated here, but the whole park is becoming from a rubbish dump into an amazing metropolitan park. So we're trying to do what you call a rewilding, bringing back the nature into the middle of the city, trying to reflood many plains, and I'll show you later on a part of what we're doing here. So hello from Ariel Sharon Park.
Yuval, if you could find the green sandpiper that was just calling behind you, if you can find it somewhere.
Yeah, I heard it. You can hear so many voices. You can hear the green sandpipers and the Eurasian teals singing, and we have lots of gulls. Now they're flying back to the Mediterranean Sea to sleep. We have some pigeons and starling doing their murmuration here. I'm not sure if you can see the starlings and the pigeons just over there. 5 species of raptors are concentrated here. So this is Ariel Sharon, formerly a rubbish dump, and nowadays an amazing park. It's only opening to the public in the next months. So we're lucky to have a glimpse into the park, which is like being under construction. The whole of Israel is a kind of, you can say, a construction site. Things are already all the time being changed, and everything is dynamic in this country. And this part of the country is like a metropolitan park under construction.
Thank you, Val. Thank you. I think that Rhea still has one bird to show us that needs to go, and then we can pass on to Noam, because I see Noam has some cool birds.
Yes, so while Nadav and Noam showed you some great birds in the field, I had to release the Sardinian Warbler. We try to minimize the time we keep the birds in hand, so we don't take too much of their precious time. As Noam said, birds are already preparing for the way back north. I have another Sardinian Warbler here, and it's a migrant. Not all of them migrate to Israel. Some are residents. Some spend their winter here, like this little female here. They are not long distance migrants like the ring plovers or dunlins that migrate thousands and thousands of kilometers. These guys will probably fly a few hundreds of kilometers north, maybe reach Lebanon or Turkey, one of our neighboring countries, where they would spend summer. I can assure you this one is a migrant because it's already storing fat. One of the things that we can see when handling birds in hand is actually how much fat do they store. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to pass it through the camera, but the method to assess the amount of fat a bird has on it is blowing the breast feathers sideways and trying to figure out what kind of tissue we see underneath. The skin is transparent, so we can just look right through and see whether we have only muscles, or we can see a patch of fat, which is usually yellow or orange. And this bird already has a few areas with fat stored, ready to start heading north. I'm gonna release this one as well. It's probably got an hour or so before last light. It needs to feed and perhaps leave us very soon. Yoav, will we have time for another bird now, or move on?
I see Noam has some great birds, so let's quickly go to Noam and maybe get back to you in a minute. Noam?
Okay, so back to Elad. Thank you, Yoav and Rhea. Rhea, we miss you. Rhea used to work for us for many years. This is a beautiful rock. It's another bird that arrives here from the Arctic. This is a nice male, and you can see already molting into the beginning of its summer plumage, which is going to be just extravagant, amazing. And as you can see, and as Rhea said, the birds are very, very, very busy right now in one thing only, and this is foraging. They need their energy for migration, for molting.
Sorry, we can't see Noam.
Also to keep,
Noam, sorry, we can't see you. Noam, sorry, we can't see you. Maybe.
Okay.
Now we can see what you're seeing. Thank you. Okay.
Visible?
Nadav? No,
we're losing you. Your bandwidth is losing you. Nadav, do you have something to show us? I'll hear you, Noam.
In a minute.
Noam, we see you now.
Okay, great. So this is the raft. Some of them has this white head, some of them has rufous, some black. And this one is preparing for migration. You can see how much they eat. And here is a beautiful Marsh Sandpiper just in front of it right now. It arrives from Eastern Europe and Asia, busy in foraging, collecting energy for the coming spring. And the diversity here is just amazing. All this.
Noam, you're breaking.
Birds are just 20 meters from me. Frame, I'm afraid.
Noam, we can't see you now. We can't see you. Maybe we should go back to somebody else and then.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll try to move a little bit. Okay. So back to you.
Rea, do you want to complete your birds?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so not all of our birds are migrants. Actually, some of the more interesting species are the resident birds. Yuval, I see you have something happening. You want to switch it over to you?
Yeah, I've just spotted a common Eurasian common buzzard, a beautiful bird. We've got a couple of buzzards spending the winter here in Park Ariel Sharon. You know, it's hard to believe that behind the buzzard, you see the city of Tel Aviv. You see people are here outside, living here, and just a couple of hundreds of meters, you can find the most wild birds and do lots of amazing birding. This is part of the beauty of Israel, that everything is so close in such a close vicinity to each other, and the birds kind of get along with the people. So the common buzzard is a winter visitor. It's probably has passed a couple of thousands of kilometers coming from Europe, maybe Northern Europe. And here in the park, it's hunting for voles and maybe pigeons that are coming from the city to feed in the park. I'm just marveling this amazing bird. You know, it's standing, enjoying the last rays of light here in Israel. Ariel Sharon Metropolitan Park. Thanks, Rea.
Okay, so let's move on with the ringing, okay? As I started to say, not all of our birds are migrants, and some of the more interesting species actually are the resident species, the birds that live here their whole life. They breed here, they spend the winter here, and they specialize on surviving year-round in our habitat. They can teach us a lot about what's going on in our ringing station, in our urban nature site. I'm going to introduce you to one of these species, one of the more well-known species here. I'm sure that also the North Americans of you will recognize this little dude. This is the great tit. It's a really common species all over Europe and Western Asia. Here in Israel, it's also a very common species in the Mediterranean zone. It's a close relative of the North American chickadees. All of these tits, chickadees, they are woodland and forest birds. Here in Israel, it's in the Mediterranean zone, and also very common inside the city in parks and gardens. Okay, can you see it? This one is a very, you can see it's got a lot of character. I'm trying not to stress it out too much, so I'll hold it like that. Let me show you that it's already ringed. You see the bird already has a ring. It's not a surprise to me. These birds, as I said, spend their whole lives here. And some of these tits or other residents are being caught almost on a weekly basis. This allows us to portray their whole life and assess their survival, their breeding capacity and success. And actually, they are one of the nicest birds I know. This one is a male. I'll show you how we know that. You see the lower part of the belly is broadly painted black.
We can't see up. Take the bird up a bit, up.
Can you see it? Like that?
Yeah.
Okay, so this black area, this broad black patch is distinctive of a male. The females has a finer black streak going all the way through the breast and the lower parts. Wow, it's a real biter. This one is small but has a very strong beak. It's really a generalist species food-wise. They can be predatorial, prey some smaller insects, caterpillars, mostly in the breeding seasons. Now in winter, they probably feed mostly on seeds and maybe some early flowers or other green material. I think it's about time to let this one go. These guys are already singing. As we mentioned, spring is already in the doorstep. They are already singing, being very territorial. Probably will find its mate soon. And later on in the season, we'll start nesting.
Thank you, Rea. Let's see whether we can connect to Noam properly this time. Noam? Alan, can you spotlight Noam?
Yes,
please?
I'm on.
Yay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so in the picture, you can see we are still at the new lake of the Eilat Bird Sanctuary, and there is a female ruff standing, cleaning itself right now. It was foraging very actively until a few minutes ago, and behind it is a black-winged stilt, which is a local resident bird that also migrates. They do breed around, but birds we ringed here in Eilat made it even to Chad in sub-Saharan Africa. So they are sometimes on the move. And you can see also the ruff is starting to look for some food. This time of the day, which is here afternoon, is a very important time for the birds to forage before the cold night, which is in front of them. And this is just a nice party of birds. Here is another party member, party crusher. It's the red shank. You can see the red beautiful legs, and it is also coming from Northern Europe and is now feasting here at the Eilat Bird Sanctuary. The air here is full of hirondines, of swallows, of 3 species that I can't really show, but the air is just full of tiny mosquitoes that we here try to grow so the birds will have whatever they need to complete their epic journey back to their breeding grounds in Europe and Asia. Great, so these are the red shank and the ruff feeding together. And here I will try to show you also the male ruff, which is completely stunning with its is a tiny little behind
I'm afraid Noam's connection is not great. Maybe
Find
we
him.
can. Noam, your connection isn't great. Maybe we can pass over to Yuval for a couple of minutes.
Hi, I just found a really nice concentration of ducks here in the middle of the city. We're looking at the Eurasian shovelers.
Some birds are eating, foraging, but some birds also need to molt to change their feathers, male or up.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, yeah. Yuval, take it.
Sorry. So yeah, we're watching a couple of shovelers, a really nice species of duck. That's a good quality duck here in the center of Dan metropolitan area. The pool we're looking at is an artificial pool. Once all this area was just wheat fields. In the past, tens of years ago, the coastal plains of Israel were full of flooded areas. The streams that were bringing water to the Mediterranean Sea were creating pools and marshlands that were an amazing habitat for the migratory birds. With all the development of Israel, all this the areas were drained and became agricultural areas or cities. You know, Israel, the coastal plains around the Mediterranean is the most populated area in the Middle East. And now we're trying to kind of bring the history back and reflood these areas. One of the reasons is creating this habitat for migratory birds like we see here in the scope. Another reason is to protect the city of Tel Aviv from flash floods. The global warming has brought really, really strong events of rain that can create damage to the city with flash floods. And the water is derived into the park now. So we're accomplishing two goals. One is protecting the city from floods, and the other one is creating this amazing habitat for birds. Back to you, Noam.
Yeah, take it. I'm on the way to another attraction.
Okay. I was asked on the chat, what's the area of the Ariel Sharon Park? It's about 800 hectares, 8,000 dunam.
It's bigger than the Central Park.
Yeah, it's larger. It's really a wonderful park. The black-winged wader that Noam showed was a black-winged stilt. Yeah, Rea, I guess you're out of birds at the moment, right?
Okay. Yeah, I just sent our lovely volunteers on a net round. Hopefully they will bring something nice for another run with the ringing session.
Okay. I was asked on the chat about the bird flu situation in Israel. I did mention it briefly. We gave a long bird flu webinar a few weeks ago, but we can update. So yeah, so there was a big bird flu outbreak in the Hula Valley, mainly in the second half of December. It was really a dramatic event, the worst wildlife disaster we've ever had in Israel. Something like 8,000 cranes died in that bird flu outbreak, and it was really horrible to see that. And there are some important conservation implications out of that, or how to manage the cranes and how to manage the Agamon Hula Park. But currently, the bird flu outbreak seems to be, well, it's not over yet, but Yuval has a widgeon. It's really much better now. There are still few cases, not really in the Hula Valley, but in the Betchan Valley. Actually, pelicans seem to be suffering a bit more now. But in the Hula Valley, the situation is better. I think that the Agamon Hula Park is not open yet because the bird flu virus can persist in water for several weeks. So I think that they're waiting for some tests just to confirm that it's not dangerous anymore, but hopefully within a week or two, it will reopen. Maybe we can return to Yuval because Yuval has some cool widgeon.
Yeah, I've just found a widgeon, and the widgeon in Israel is a duck that prefers sometimes deeper water or water next to fields, and it's a really good quality duck. We already can count more than 3 males here, and it's really amazing how the variety of birds is going up from year to year. You know, we've counted more than 300 species of birds here in this park, and their numbers are just rising every year. More and more, we're creating this quality habitat, and the widgeons have arrived this year because of the water that is getting better. And the interesting story about the widgeon is that its Latin name is called Anas Penelope. Penelope was from the Greek mythology, and she was saved by a duck in the sea. That's why this duck is called Anas Penelope. Back to you, Av.
Yeah, Noam, I see that you are positioned and you have some birds.
Yes, so we moved to the Anita Lake, which is another brackish water lake full of fish. And this is the place for the fish eaters to come and fuel up. This is the greater cormorant. It's a common bird in Eilat. Sometimes we have up to 2,000 of them. At the moment, there are just 2 of them at the bird sanctuary, and they are waiting here for fish to move so they can dive deep and grab them with this really big bill. The eyes of the cormorant are unique. They can see under the water perfectly, and they even have some kind of cups, like translucent cups, so they can close their eyelashes and still see under the water. And it's not the only fisher guy here. Look at this girl. This is the gray heron. Same food, fish, but completely different foraging technique. It is on patrol. And when it sees a fish, it just grabs it. It stabs it with its enormous and very sharp bill, and just takes it and swallows it. The fish here are numerous and quite big. So sometimes they even have some trouble getting them into their mouths. This is one of about 5 gray herons that are spending winter here at the bird sanctuary. And on the other side is a spur-winged lapwing. Maybe you can see it, it's a bit far. Try to get closer. Spur-winged lapwing is a lapwing which is sometimes around the urban habitats too, but also in wetlands. It is feeding mainly on insects, and it's extremely territorial. The reason that you don't see so many shorebirds around this pond is merely because the lapwing is here. It is chasing all the waders away, keeping all the food for itself. And here it's moving a little bit. You can see it better. It's basically an African species, and the northern tip of its distribution is our region in the Middle East. And we really love this bird. And here is another beautiful cormorant. Just look at this. Again, just like the ruff, is moving into summer plumage. And maybe you can spot its very beautiful green eyes. This is a real stunner here at the bird sanctuary of Eilat. And Another heron is the little egret that is also just like the gray heron, is usually patrolling the shallow water area looking for movement of fish. Its feet are yellow. Some ornithologists claim that this resembles maybe worms or something which is obvious for the fish, that they might think it's food. So they are attracted to its feet, and then it can grab them with the bill. It's amazing to see the little egret sometimes dancing in the water, like they move real fast and try to move unexpectedly from right to left and left to right, just to surprise passing fish. And what's really amazing is they always stay bright, smart, clean, white, just like a bride, and never gets dirty, even if it's all the time, spending all its time in the mud. So it's one amazing bird here. I can also hear another fisher guy. Yeah.
Thank you, Noam. I see that both Nadav and Yuval have some great birds, so maybe we can move to them quickly. Also, Rea has some fresh birds in at the ring. So Nadav, we'll start with you.
Okay, can you hear me well?
Yeah, great.
Great. So I just found a roosting tree of black-crowned night herons. They're relatives of the herons that Noam showed you, the gray heron and the little egret. This is a black-crowned night heron, and as their name suggests, they are mainly active during the night. Oh, you saw that? It took out a pellet. So they're active during the night, and during the days, they occupy roosting trees. The tree in front of me has maybe up to 30 black-crowned night herons. In one move of the scope, you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they're all adults. I won't take you with me to see the whole 30, but you'll have to believe me that they're here. They're active at night, feeding on fish mainly, but also amphibians like toads, and mainly from the fish, all the bones that they cannot digest, they take out as a pellet. And if you were focused enough to see that this individual in front of us just took out a pellet about a minute ago, and now is ready to start its night shift. They will start their night shift in about an hour or so, when the sun will go down and night will start here in Israel.
Thank you, Nadav. Yuval, is your bird still on show, or did it fly off? Yuval, I saw that you had a raptor, but it's flown off, hasn't it?
Okay, yeah, raptors. It's hard. I had an amazing bird. It was a long-legged buzzard, but a dark morph. I've never seen one before here. I'll hope to catch it, but it just flew. So
okay, do your best. We'll move to Rea. Rea has some new birds.
Yeah, so our volunteers just came back with 2 new birds. It started to drizzle here, so I'm afraid we might have to close the net soon. We don't want to take any chance with getting birds wet or hypothermic in the nets. But thankfully, we have 2 new birds that we haven't seen yet. First one I'll show you is one of the tiniest species we see in Israel. Actually, I think it's the smallest bird recorded in Israel. It's called the chiefchaff.
Another chance, one last chance for the buzzard.
Okay, Yuval, back to you for a quick one with the buzzard.
I've just discovered a long-legged buzzard in the park, Ariel Sharon Park, but this is the rare dark morph of the long-legged buzzard. A really rare morph of this amazing bird. Long-legged buzzards are both migrant and wintering birds here in Israel, and even nest in Israel. We have a huge population of this bird in Israel, especially in the Judea Plains here in Israel. They feed mainly here in the park on pigeons and ducks. They can catch ducks here in the floodplains. And this amazing bird is looking for its last chance of a dinner before sunset. You can see it's a bit bigger than the common buzzard, and it has a nice yellow eye. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's a dark morph long-legged buzzard, an amazing bird. And I think this park is giving a fight to any birding park, although we're surrounded by the most dense population in Israel. So it's a really good day here. Back to you, Rhea.
Thank you, Yuval. Wow, what a stunner. So, thanks, Yuval. Wow, real stunner for sure. This bird may be a little less distinguished, but still an amazing species. I started saying this one is one of the tiniest species of birds we ever find in Israel. This one in particularly weighs 6.2 grams. That's basically almost nothing. It's a tiny, tiny species, a migratory species. In Hebrew, it's called Alvitrovis, the leaf warbler of the winter. Appropriately named. It's spending its winter in Israel and around East Africa. It doesn't go all the way south to South Africa, but it's still a pretty long-range migrant. We know they come from a wide range of areas in Europe. And can you see it properly? Okay. It's coming from a wide range in Europe and Asia. And a few years back, correct me if I'm wrong, Noam found a new population nesting in Israel, in Mount Hermon. A truly fascinating species. It's an insectivorous species. You can see it's got a tiny, fine bill. It preys on tiny insects, flies and mosquitoes. And when they pass through on migration or during winter, they really do a great service for us together with other insectivorous species, literally acting as pest controls. We don't pay them anything, but they are doing an amazing job for us. Here at the JBO, they spend the winter, and this little bird is already storing fat. It's a recurring theme today. They're right about to leave us, and even though it's not going to nest anywhere near here, probably hundreds or thousands of kilometers north of here, they already start warming up their vocal box, and they sing very loudly. They have a very distinctive song going tick, 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 tick. I'm not very good at imitating birds, but you have to believe me. This distinctive song gave it its name in many languages, chief chaff. In German, I think it goes by slip slap and so forth. You can see by the colors of this bird, it's a forest species. It really looks like a tiny leaf. It's got a very neat olive green back, and the lower parts are paler. This pattern is perfect for disguise in the canopies. If you are looking at it from above, let's say from a hawk's view, you will see the darker upper parts, which are very similar to the leaves around it. And if you look at it from below, the paler parts look right, just like the spaces between the leaves where the light comes through. So it's almost invisible unless you're a keen predator or a birder that knows how to detect the calls and the movement in the canopy. This bird is already completely ringed and ready to go. So we let it go and see what else we have, unless anyone has anything.
Noam has some bigger birds now, I can see. Over to you, Noam.
Wait, can I hold it?
Thank you. So we cannot finish a webinar in Eilat without our friends, the flamingos. As you can see, they are pretty sleepy at the moment. And we have moved from the brackish water lakes into some salt ponds. And they are not the only ones around. You can see these beautiful white dots in the background on the right side in the back. These are the shell ducks. And just like the flamingos, the shell ducks are feeding on the crabs, on the shrimps, called Artemia, which are in the water. When the flamingos will be awake, will probably be in a few minutes, because they are usually night foraging right here. So the shell ducks are foraging mainly during day. And the interesting thing is that you see, here it is, you usually see their butts, because to get into the bottom of the water, they need to stretch their necks all the way to the bottom, and then they have to show us their bottoms. So when they dive, it's a pretty unique behavior, and they push. You can see they push the water with their feet, with their red feet, so they can reach as low as possible to the bottom of the pond to get their food. The flamingos you see are not as big as you might have expected, because they are mostly young birds. The adult ones usually complete their journey all the way to East Africa, and we are left with this grayer looking young birds, or second year, third year birds that spend the winter here. And you can actually, even if this is not a breeder in Eilat, you can see flamingos here all year round. The numbers fluctuate between 2,000 to 300 in summer, but they are always here. And it became one of the symbols of this town of Eilat. And this is why it's easier for us to protect them. At the moment, there is a plan to build a campsite for 750 people just next to the flamingo pools. And we are putting our utmost efforts to try and push this initiative away and convince that night activity next to these night active birds is going to be the end of flamingo presence around us in Eilat. And it's a very, very precious bird to lose. And the people of Eilat are keen to keep it safe. So here they are, peaceful, and the shell ducks in the back are still foraging. And we actually, in the bird sanctuary, we had some disturbances for the flamingos with some small trucks or jeeps. People really want to see them flying because they have really beautiful wings. And we managed to photograph some people who did that, and they got fined and prosecuted. So we are doing our best to keep them, and we just put a new fence to make sure that nobody.
Noam, your connection isn't good again. So, okay.
Okay, so just last word. Just if you can still see the beautiful scenery of Eilat, the Dome Mountains behind us, and this is the bird sanctuary in front of you. So, Yoav, back to you.
Thank you, Noam. Let's go to Nadav. Nadav has some other large birds on show.
Yeah, hi everybody. Again, from the Hula Valley, from the north part of Israel. We're moving back and forth in this webinar from the south to the north of Israel. Just to give you a perspective, me and Noam are now separated by almost 500 kilometers. Okay, I'm in the northern tip of Israel in the Hula Valley, and Noam in the southern tip in Eilat. So we just moved almost 500 kilometers from Noam in the south to me in the north, and I'm now looking at a wonderful flock of wonderful birds, the common cranes in the Hula Valley, the birds that have become the symbol of the Hula Valley in the past years, for a good reason. They started wintering in the Hula Valley. Cranes started wintering in the Hula Valley about 30 years ago, in the early 90s. And since then, their wintering numbers have grown from a few hundreds to over 40 or close to 50,000 cranes wintering in the Hula Valley. There's a whole project here involving management, quite complex management to prevent them from creating damages to farmers' crops around the Hula Valley, including providing them with alternative food, feeding them. And this year the cranes suffered a lot in the second half of December, like Yoav told you earlier, from avian flu. They were the species that suffered the most. From about 30,000 cranes that were here before this eruption of avian flu, we're now thinking we're about 23 or 24,000 cranes, and about 8,000 cranes have died in this avian flu eruption. But the ones that survived, it took them a couple of weeks, but they regained their strength, and now they're, all of them, as you can see, foraging, feeding, just hanging around, doing what cranes supposed to do. And cranes usually, see, this one is feeding now. Cranes feed on grains and seeds they take from the ground. And usually in Israel, they start to migrate north in the last week of February. So February 26 to 28, depending on the weather on those specific days, they will leave us and start their migration north. What happened?
Thank you, Nadav. Maybe we can switch over to Yuval. Yuval has...
Yeah, we're watching spur-winged plover here in Ariel Sharon Park. Spur-winged plovers are one of the most beautiful plovers we have here in Israel. They're the most common species. If you go down from the plane in Israel, this is the first bird you'll meet, even in the airport. It's a kind of, it has a African status, but also it's found all along the Middle East, all the way to Turkey. It's called after its special spur. This is a very aggressive bird, defending its nestlings. It nests on the ground, and it can chase away even an elephant that is passing by. It has a tiny spur on its wing, and it can really scare other birds like raptors that might come and eat its offsprings. The spur-winged plover was a contestant of our national bird. It had some Israeli characters. It's very loud, very social, very protective, but in the end, the hoopoe won, maybe because of its crest. So that's the spur-winged plover. Back to you, Yoav.
Thanks. I think that Rea still has another bird or two for us before he has to end the ringing session, the banding session.
Yeah, so I have the last bird for this session, probably. This bird was just brought from the nets. I think it's the first bird for this afternoon session that was caught with no ring. So it's a new bird for us, new bird for our database. And the first thing I'm going to do is identify the bird to the species level. Can you see the bird properly? לא, אני צריך לראות את הציפור הזה. Okay, so you can easily see it's a small bird. It's a passerine, more or less uniform gray, olive tinged all over, with a distinct black cap, properly named the black cap or the black cap warbler. It's a relative of the Sardinian warblers we've seen already, and we could say it's the commonest bird species in Israel on migration, especially during the springtime, but also during the fall migration. Huge numbers of these birds pass through Israel. In some years, you can see literally thousands and thousands of them hopping around either in Eilat or here in the JBO. When they arrive here in late spring, in late April or beginning of May, they usually feed on mulberry trees. And in order to provide them this precious source of food, we take really good care of the mulberry trees we have here. I think that last year, 2 or 3 new trees were planted to reinforce the plantation here and answer the demands of these migratory birds. After the identification of the species, the next step is to bring the bird, place this tiny, can you see the tiny band I'm holding between my legs and the thumb? So this tiny band is going to be placed on the tarsus. I'm going to really gently squeeze it so it's nice and round. And just to make sure it's not going to fall off, I'm going to use this special plier for bird ringing or bird bending. Just to make sure you realize what's going on, I cannot harm the bird's leg with this plier. You see it's got special holes in the right diameter for each and every one of our bird bends. So this one got the new bend. Let me just type in the information so I'm not going to forget anything. So this one goes by X495446. It's a Sylvia atricapilla, that's the Latin name. As I mentioned before, it's a male by the black cap. And the next thing I'm going to try and do is determine the age of the bird. I don't know if it's possible to see, but the cap is not completely jet black. It's still got some orange tinge to it. Can you see it clearly? And if we look on the wing, that's another thing you can't see while just watching birds in the field. You can't really take a really careful look into the fine details of the feathers. I can see that some of the wing,
Rhea, can you hold the bird up a little bit so we can see it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's okay. So I can see that some of the wings greater coverts, some of the covered feathers, the ones that create the aerodynamic shape of the wing, not the big flight feathers that actually push the air. So some of these feathers are more brownish and short than the rest of them. That allows me to determine this bird is a young bird. These feathers, the smaller, browner bird, feathers, were actually grown by this bird as a nestling while it's in the nest. And the new feathers, it's already replaced most of them, are grayer, longer, larger, and looks like adult fur. So this bird still retains some of the juvenile feathers, therefore I can say it's a young bird.
Rhea, maybe by the time you finish processing the bird, one final look at the black cap, because Noam has a super special bird, I think.
Okay, so let's go on to Noam, please.
Thank you, Rhea.
Okay, thank you. So what we are seeing on what is second time recorded in for a few months, and this one arrived probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it is fishing here at the Anita Lake. We are back to Anita Lake with a lot of
We've lost your picture again.
fish, and
Mom?
we are not sure if okay, sorry. Well, I think can you have it? Do you have it?
No, not yet. No, we've lost you.
Oh, maybe.
Okay.
No.
Yoav, you want me to take it from here for a second?
Yeah, go back up, Ray, and finish up with that until we get him back.
So I'm just done processing the bird. What I quickly did was measuring the wing length, the tail length, some biometrics, checked for fat, and this guy is packed with fat. That probably means it's already starting moving north, and weighed it. It's good to go, and hopefully will do well on its first trip back home. Just imagine, this bird is less than 1 year old and already probably flew thousands of kilometers all on its own, with absolutely no assistance from no one else. Either spent its winter here or maybe even south of here, and now it's preparing going up north. You can say he's on a mission. He has to make the way north as fast as possible, efficient as possible, and preferably arrive there with some energy reserves. Once it gets to its breeding grounds, it will have to compete for the best territory. It will sing and hopefully attracts a female and try to reproduce for the first time. So we let this guy go.
And this is Alan. I'm just going to add to what Rhea is saying was that's the black cap go, that the bird observatory in Jerusalem, the Neely and David Bird Observatory, is now open back up to the public for bird ringing. And all through the spring, from the 1st of March to the end of May, we will be bird ringing every day. And the public is welcome to come and join us and see what's going on every morning from about 6 a.m. till about 10 a.m. So we hope to see you here in Jerusalem. And that was a black-capped warbler, otherwise known as just black-cap, one of our most common birds in Israel. Nadav, Noam or Nadav, do we have anything to go back to?
No birds here at the moment. Well, plenty of birds, but none for me to show you. In my scope, just the landscape of the Hula Valley. We're now looking together. We're looking northeast to Mount Hermon in the clouds, and now moving east towards the Golan Heights, and all the way south and west towards the sunset over the Naphtali Ridge, the Galilee Mountains.
Oh, Yuval. What does Yuval have?
Yuval, to you.
Yuval?
Can anyone highlight Yuval?
You hear me now?
Yeah.
Yep.
I was just saying that I've found the long-legged buzzard again. It's an amazing bird, and you know, Israel is such an amazing bird for an amazing country for raptors. In every day, you can see sometimes 10 species of raptors, even in the winter. In the springtime, you can see sometimes 15 or even 20 species of raptors migrating above you. So it's a real spectacle, the raptors in Israel, because Israel is a wintering ground for so many species of raptors, especially. They come to hunt the birds and the reptiles and the all the animals here. And this long-legged buzzard right now has decided to spend the winter around the Ariel Sharon Park. It's still looking for the ducks. You know, the twilight hours, like now in Israel, are sometimes the best time to hunt because the raptors have an advantage on the other birds. They have a better eyesight, especially in really dim light. So it doesn't care to wait till after sunset because this is the best time to hunt. Even in very strong wind conditions, like here now in this wintry day in Israel, this long-legged buzzard has an advantage. And of course, if you're asking when is the best time to come to watch raptors in Israel, then autumn, the end of September, beginning of October in Israel is one of the best times. And of course, spring migration above Eilat Mountains, spring migration, raptor migration in the end of March and all over April. This is the best time to come to Israel. Back to you.
Let's try Noam again. Yeah. Oh.
Okay. So if you can see now, it's the pygmy cormorant, and in front of it a little grebe. So the pygmy cormorant, as I said before, is a rarity here in Eilat. This is just the second record, and it is now preparing itself for roosting. Sometimes they roost in groups, but he's the only one in Eilat, so tough luck for this guy. He's fishing all day long here at the Anita Lake. It's a real beauty, and maybe it will spread its wings. Not really. You can see the smaller bill, and unlike the greater cormorant we saw before, and the brownish tinge to the head, and the long tail that tells the species of this bird. It's not totally alone, as you can see. It has a white friend. This is the little egret here, and next to them are swimming all these little grebes that are they are just swimming all the time, cruising the lake, I don't know, kilometers per day, looking for fish and just having fun. So I think this is our last words here. We are kind of losing light at the Eilat Bird Sanctuary. So thank you very much for being.
Thank you, Noam.
Rea, I think you have one last bird, I think, before it gets dark in Jerusalem too.
Yes, so while closing the nets, our volunteers brought us another, this time for real, last bird for the session. We already saw this guy, a different bird though, a different individual. That's the great tit. Another male. They're extremely active this time of the year, as I mentioned. One thing I didn't say is that these birds are cavity nesters. It means that they nest only in holes in old trees or rock faces, or old buildings that sometimes have cracks and cavities in them. If you think about it, the modern cities are very poor in such niches. Old trees are not very common, and older buildings are also being replaced by newer buildings with new tiles, which don't allow these birds much options for nesting, and that's a real limiting factor. Some measures we take here at the JBO to allow them to persist is the placement of nesting boxes, which is a common practice all over the world for tits and chickadees. And also, hopefully, when you come join us here, you will see that all of our buildings, even the newer buildings that were established here, like the gallery and the office, are built with a cavity implemented to the infrastructure with rocks covering the outer walls, and even nesting holes drills into the tiles of the building. So hopefully these birds are going to be able to survive the intense life of the modern cities. And you see this guy really needs to go. You see the character, it's not happy here. As someone asked before, in the chat I saw, these birds don't enjoy being handled, and therefore we try to minimize the time we hold them and try to prevent as much stress as possible. If done correctly.
Sorry, it's almost dark in the other side, so let's try to quickly say goodbye to the rest of the birds, because there are some birds on show. Nadav. Thank you, Rea. Thanks a lot.
Just last bird from the Hula Valley, quite a common bird still in some places in Israel. This is a crested lark. You can see its crest when it turns its head. It used to be a very, very common bird in Israel, even in the center of Israel, but with the, like Yuval mentioned before, with the transformation from open areas and agriculture into highly populated cities. Crested larks have disappeared in quite a lot of places in the center part of Israel, but they still hold quite large populations in the agricultural parts of the country. They nest on the ground, and it's a beautiful bird. They're highly vocal, and they are great imitators. They imitate tens of different species of birds, and also calls and voices they hear in their surrounding. Mimics, and wonderful little birds. Resident in Israel, they don't migrate. They stay here year round. Yeah, crested lark.
Thank you so much for that last bird, Nadav, and Rhea, and Noam, and Yuval, and Nadav.
Maybe Yuval has some last words to show.
I'll highlight some of what he's going on there as we, where did Yuval go?
Here, Park Ariel Sharon, it's like a tense piece between the ducks and the long-legged buzzard. He's watching the ducks, waiting for his chance to hunt. And
Yuval, was it a little stint on the right? Can you move to the right a bit? A bit more? Was there a little stint running on the mud there?
I might have missed it. It could be just a wagtail, but I'll look for it. It might be a first record for Park Ariel Sharon if I'll find it.
Great.
This is Park Ariel Sharon, the reflooded areas in the middle of the most urban place in Israel.
Fantastic. And as we watch the ducks and birds in Park Ariel Sharon, we're getting ready to call a day and close the webinar for the day as the sun is setting around the country. It's so great that you guys were able to join us. We had over 250 people online with us today, and from all over the country. Some people are just going to bed while others are just getting up. And it's wonderful to have you all with us. For those of you who want to continue helping us out with our ongoing education and conservation programs, I have posted a couple times on the chat, and I'm doing so one more time. We welcome donations to keep all these programs going and flowing, and to be able to come at you with all these great birding webinars, etc. And we want to thank again Speaker Yadov for his ongoing support in helping us get these live webinars up and running. I'm going to highlight everybody so that we can say thank you to Noam, who's joining us from Eilat, to Nadav Yisraeli from the Hula Valley, to Yuval Dax from the Park Ariel Sharon near Tel Aviv, from Rhea Shaish in the Jerusalem Bird Observatory, Yoav Pillman joining us from home as our MC today, and Jay, who's left us today to go to yet another webinar, who joined us earlier today from the fundraising department. I'm Alan Casal, and we hope to see you again soon. And for those of you who can, we'll be in Eilat for the Eilat Bird Festival in the end of March, and Champions of the Flyway at the beginning of April. We hope you can join us either live and in person, or there will be ways for you to join from wherever you are all over the world. And we hope you can be part of our great spring birding experience. Bye from Israel for now.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye.
Guys.
Thank you.
See you in Israel. Enjoy.
Bye-bye.